I used to think love was enough. That if I raised my daughter right, gave her everything she ever needed, she'd grow up kind, grateful, and strong. Olivia was my world. I raised her alone after her father passed, working double shifts as a nurse to make ends meet. I missed birthdays, Christmas mornings, and school plays, but I never missed a bill. I thought that counted for something. When she came to me last month with tears in her eyes and said the IVF treatments weren't covered by insurance, I didn't hesitate. I pulled $250,000 from my retirement fund and wired it straight to her account. She said this baby would be her miracle. I wanted to believe her. The next morning, I called her to check in. I transferred the money. Sweetheart, I said gently. Please make sure you take your supplements, okay? Oh, Mom, she chirped, her voice full of sunshine. I will. Thank you so much. You don't know what this means to me. I almost cried from the warmth in her tone. That old, aching hope swelled in my chest that maybe, finally, she saw me as more than just a bank account. We hung up, and I walked into the kitchen to start my tea. My hands trembled as I poured the water. Not from age. From relief. I felt useful again. That feeling shattered 10 seconds later. My phone hadn't fully disconnected. Olivia hadn't realized it was still active. I heard her laugh. Not her sweet, public giggle. A cold, dry laugh like the one she used to fake cry during high school drama auditions. She actually sent it, she told someone, her husband, most likely. Can you believe it? $250,000. No questions asked. All it took was a fake sonogram and some sniffles. My heart dropped. Then came the final blow. We'll make it look like an accident, her husband said flatly. The hiking spot is perfect. Insurance won't question it. By the time they find her, the payout will be processed. My breath caught in my throat. Olivia replied, she's so slow now, it won't take much. I'll hand her the water bottle myself. One sip and she's out. I didn't drop the phone. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, gripping the edge of the kitchen counter while everything inside me cracked quietly. How do you process something like that? Your child, the one you raised, the one you protected, plotting your death for insurance money? I didn't know what to feel. Rage? Betrayal? No. Not yet. I only felt empty. Hollow. That night, I sat in the dark, replaying her words over and over again. I remembered how I skipped meals to pay for her piano lessons. How I borrowed money to get her braces when Medicaid wouldn't cover them. How I held her when she cried over that boy in college who cheated on her. How I believed her when she said she wanted to be a mother. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. But I made a decision. I would go on that hike. I would drink the water. I would smile. And I would make them believe their plan was working. They thought I was old. They forgot I was a nurse for 36 years. And I hadn't survived a war zone of screaming patients, short staffing, and 10-day shifts just to die on a hiking trail. I didn't tell anyone what I'd heard. Not my neighbor. Not the ladies at the community center. Not even Donna, my best friend of 30 years. This wasn't something I could say out loud, not yet. I needed proof. I needed patience. Most of all, I needed Olivia to think I was still her fool. She called the next day, cheerful as ever. Hey, Mom. So, Brian and I were thinking, the apartment is getting kind of tight, what with the baby on the way. We might crash at your place for a bit. Just until the new year. You don't mind, right? I smiled into the phone, my voice warm and familiar. Of course, sweetheart. My home is your home. I could practically hear the satisfaction in her silence. They moved in that weekend. Olivia brought 3 suitcases, 2 humidifiers, and a pink Odyssey she hung in my hallway like a trophy. She kissed my cheek when she arrived, and I smelled something sharp beneath her perfume. Arrogance, maybe. Brian didn't say much. Just nodded and smiled like he was born with a poker face. Wow, Mom, Olivia said, spinning in my living room. You really kept this place in good shape. I do my best, I said. 30 years in the same house teaches you a few things. I didn't mention the security cameras I installed last spring. Or the safe under the stairs? They wouldn't know, not yet. By the second night, Brian had taken over my recliner. Olivia asked if I could swap bedrooms with her. I just need the room with more light, she said. You know, for the baby. I gave it to her. Happily. I even cooked her favorite meal, creamy mushroom pasta, garlic toast, roasted zucchini. You've still got it, Mom, she said, chewing noisily. I smiled. Eat up. You're going to need your strength. That night, I went into the bathroom and took inventory of my medicine drawer. Everything was there except one bottle. A sedative I'd been prescribed after my hip surgery last year. Just in case of anxiety. Gone. I didn't panic. I just walked into the garage, pulled out my old nursing kit, and found what I needed, a test strip for residue. The next morning, I checked my water glass after breakfast. The results? Positive. They were microdosing me already. It took every ounce of discipline I had not to scream. Instead, I smiled more. Played dumb. I even told Olivia I was having trouble sleeping and thanked her for being such a help. She beamed. Don't worry, Mom. Just rest. We'll take care of everything. Of course they would. They started dropping hints the next week. Have you ever thought about transferring the house to us, Mom? Olivia asked while folding laundry. Just for tax reasons. I looked up from my crossword puzzle. That's smart. You always were my clever girl. She grinned, smug and satisfied. But I wasn't doing nothing. Every night after they went to sleep, I wrote. I logged what I saw, what I heard, what I felt. Every strange pill, every whisper, every lie. And I watched. I noticed how Olivia's fake bump was always slightly off-center. I noticed how Brian was suddenly extra helpful, offering to take me for walks, drive me to the park, make my tea. They thought they were closing in. But I was widening the gap. One day, Olivia left her purse on the kitchen table. I didn't snoop. I just moved it to the chair for her. But something fell out, a paper folded neatly, just peeking from the side pocket. I picked it up. A printed email. From an insurance company. Subject line, Policy Activation Confirmation. Recipient, Brian and Olivia Waters. Insured, Helen Waters. Amount, $500,000. My hand didn't shake. Not even a little. Instead, I tucked the email back in place, smoothed the edges, and made Olivia her favorite soup. Creamy tomato with basil. Extra pepper. Just how she liked it. For most of my life, I believed Olivia was just flawed. Impulsive, a little entitled maybe, but not cruel. I blamed myself. Maybe I'd coddled her too much. Maybe I gave too freely. That's what good mothers do, right? But good mothers don't deserve this. Not sedatives in their water. Not forged insurance documents. Not murder dressed up as a nature walk. Still, I played the role she wanted, sweet, forgetful, harmless. One afternoon, Olivia knocked gently on my bedroom door and peeked in with that well-rehearsed smile. Hey, Mom. Brian and I were talking, we think some fresh air would do you good. There's a beautiful trail just an hour out of town. Flat, easy. We could go this weekend, maybe bring a little picnic. I looked up from my knitting, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. That sounds lovely, honey. I'd love to get out of the house. She beamed like a child winning a spelling bee. As soon as she left, I turned to the journal I kept tucked beneath my mattress and scribbled. They've set the date. The next day, while Olivia and Brian were out, I took the opportunity to clean their shared bathroom. A perfect excuse. I wore gloves, moved slowly, wiped surfaces they never bothered to touch. I found their stash hidden inside an old vitamin bottle in the cabinet behind the mirror. Half a dozen crushed pills. Light blue. No label. But I knew the smell. Lorazepam. Fast-acting, strong. Especially dangerous when mixed with heat, sun, and exertion. It was enough to drop an adult in less than 10 minutes. So they were really going to do it. I sat down on the closed toilet lid, hands steady. No tears. No panic. Just facts. Just clarity. They weren't bluffing. Olivia didn't see me as a mother. She saw me as a stepping stone. A check. A house deed. A name on a policy. What she didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this kind of betrayal long before it ever came. Not from her, but from life. In my nursing days, I'd treated people who'd survived the unthinkable. Spouses who poisoned each other slowly over years. Children who smothered their elderly parents. I'd seen the patterns. That's why, years ago, after my first knee surgery, I started reading. Self-defense law. Medical masking. Behavior patterns. Hidden survival strategies. I even joined a local wilderness group not because I loved hiking, but because I knew one day I might have to fake weakness where strength was required. Funny, isn't it? I thought I was preparing for a break-in. A scam. A stranger. I never thought it would be my own daughter. The morning before the hike, I baked Olivia's favorite scones, cranberry and white chocolate. I told her they were a treat for the trail. I laced 2 of them with their own sedatives, crushed down, mixed into the batter. Not enough to hurt them. Just enough to make them drowsy. Then I refilled their energy drink bottles with electrolyte solution, boosted with the rest of their stolen lorazepam. I labeled the bottles with their names. I even added ribbons. I prepared 2 bars of my homemade trail mix and wrapped them in foil, sealing them with care. Mine were plain. Theirs. Laced with the remaining powder. Call it poetic. If they wanted me drugged, carried, tossed over a cliff, they'd have to take their own medicine first. That night, while Olivia brushed her teeth, I passed by her bedroom and heard her whispering. He'll carry her. I'll distract her near the ledge. Once she's dizzy, she'll stumble. We'll say she slipped. Simple. Brian grunted something about timing and making sure I drank everything. I went to bed with a small smile on my lips. Let them plan. Let them scheme. They thought I was playing house. They had no idea I was building a trap. The morning of the hike, I dressed slowly, like a woman unsure of her footing. I wore the soft grey cardigan Olivia once bought me for Christmas, still had the tag on it. I laced up my oldest hiking shoes and filled my pack with the essentials: sunscreen, trail mix, a camera, a little first aid kit, and a copy of my will unsigned. Just in case. Brian was already in the driveway, stretching like he was about to run a marathon. Olivia stepped out behind him, holding a thermos and 2 water bottles. Here, she said with a smile too wide. Hydrate. It's hot out today. I accepted the bottle marked Mom and smiled right back. You 2 are taking such good care of me. Brian gave me a brief nod. Let's hit the trail before it gets too hot. We drove for just over an hour. The forest grew denser the farther we went. The asphalt thinned, turned to gravel, then dirt. There were no signs. No crowds. Just a narrow trailhead, a rusted sign that read Wolf's Hollow State Preserve, and a warning about poor cell reception. This way, Brian said, leading the way with that same blank, businesslike tone. Olivia offered me her arm. Careful, Mom. These trails can be tricky. I looped my arm through hers, resting my weight lightly, careful not to show how steady my legs really were. The first half-hour passed in silence. The sun was hot, but not unbearable. The trees swayed with gentle wind. I commented on the wildflowers. Olivia agreed too quickly. Brian walked ahead, checking his phone every few minutes though we both knew there was no signal. At the halfway mark, we reached a scenic overlook. A flat patch of stone jutted out just above a deep, rocky slope. It was beautiful, too beautiful. The kind of place where no one would question an accident. This is it, Olivia said, unpacking her bag. Let's rest here for a bit. Brian handed me the thermos. Drink some. Stay cool. I took it, unscrewed the cap, and pretended to sip. Thanks, I said, wiping my mouth. You 2 really thought of everything. Of course, Olivia said. We just want you to be okay. They sat beside me on the rock. I pulled out the trail mix and the scones, handing each of them a neatly wrapped snack. You 2 have to eat, too. You need the energy. They tore into their scones like children at a picnic. I watched Olivia lick crumbs from her fingers, smiling like this was just another Sunday. And then, slowly, The shift began. Brian blinked hard. Is it hot? I feel hot. Olivia frowned, rubbing her temple. I don't feel so good. Her words slurred slightly. I turned toward them calmly, placing my uneaten snack back in my pack. You know, I said softly, I've always loved the smell of pine. Reminds me of my childhood. Brian groaned, slumping against the rock. Olivia's eyes widened, but she couldn't seem to focus on me. What did you? She whispered, her voice unraveling. I didn't do anything, I said, standing slowly. I just let you enjoy your own recipe. You should be more careful with your hiding spots. That vitamin bottle was sloppy. She tried to push herself up, but her limbs betrayed her. I walked over to her, knelt beside her, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You were always clever, Olivia. But never quite clever enough. Brian collapsed fully, eyes closed. I checked his pulse. Steady, slow. They'd sleep for hours. I took out my camera, snapped a photo of them lying there proof. Then I called 911. My voice trembled, but not with fear. I think my daughter and her husband are having a medical emergency. We're hiking in Wolf's Hollow. I think they're unconscious. Please send help. By the time the paramedics arrived, I was sitting by the trailhead, sipping water. When they carried Olivia past me on the stretcher, she opened her eyes just enough to see me watching her. I didn't say a word. Just smiled. I rode in the ambulance behind them. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to see this through. Olivia lay strapped to a stretcher, 4 in her arm, heart monitor beeping gently. Brian was still out cold, his head lolling slightly with each turn of the road. The paramedics asked questions. What happened? I think it was dehydration, I said, voice small. We were on a family hike. They said they were tired, and then they just collapsed. The driver muttered something about heat stroke and sedatives. One of the paramedics looked suspicious, but he didn't press. Once we arrived at the hospital, I waited in the lobby with my purse on my lap, legs crossed neatly, eyes blank. I stared at the pale green walls and the buzzing fluorescent lights and thought, this is where it could have ended for me. If I hadn't overheard that phone call, if I'd trusted just a little more blindly, Olivia would have sent me to my grave with a kiss and a water bottle. And she would have cried at my funeral. A nurse came out 3 hours later. They're both stable, she said. Vitals are returning to normal. They'll be kept overnight for observation. May I see them? I asked. Just one at a time, for now. I went to Olivia's room first. She looked pale, hair matted, lips dry. Her eyes fluttered open when she saw me. Mom. Yes, sweetheart. I pulled a chair beside her bed. Her voice rasped. Were you, why? I leaned in, soft and close. You're okay now. That's all that matters. She tried to focus, but her eyelids drooped again. I stood up, smoothed her blanket, and whispered. Rest up, darling. You've got a long way to fall. I didn't go into Brian's room. I had no interest in watching a grown man recover from his own greed. Instead, I returned home and started the second half of my plan. The locks were the first to go. New bolts, new security codes, all changed within 2 hours. I paid extra for rush service. Next, I called a moving company. Yes, I need 2 storage pods cleared from my property. Just boxes, clothes, and furniture. No, I don't need them returned. I sorted through their things methodically, no rage, no tears. Just bags of clothing folded and labeled, donate. Jewelry, sold. Gadgets, wiped and dropped off at a second-hand store. I stripped my house of them piece by piece, like peeling away infected skin. Then came the real final touch. I contacted my lawyer. We had a quiet lunch, and I slid over the envelope I'd been waiting to deliver. This is a draft of my new will, I told him. Effective immediately. Remove Olivia Waters from every document. She is no longer my legal heir. He blinked. Are you sure about this, Helen? I smiled, sipping my tea. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. When Olivia was discharged 3 days later, I didn't pick her up. She called 3 times. I didn't answer. She showed up anyway. I saw her through the peephole, same fake smile, same plastic charm. "Mom," she called sweetly. "I just want to talk." I opened the door halfway. She tried to step inside. I blocked her. "Where are our things?" she asked. "Gone." Her smile vanished. "What?" "Donated. Sold. Cleared out. This is my house now, Olivia. And you don't live here anymore. You can't do this," she snapped. "I'm your daughter." "No," I said softly. "You're a stranger who tried to kill me." She stood there, stunned. Brian appeared behind her on the porch, still groggy, still limping. I handed them both 2 envelopes. "What's this?" "A detailed itemized report of every cent you spent with my money. Each charge was made using credit cards in your name. You'll be receiving bills soon." Brian opened his mouth to protest. I slammed the door in his face. I stood there, alone in my quiet, clean home. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control. They didn't leave quietly. After I closed the door on Olivia and Brian, the shouting started. Fists slammed against the wood. Olivia's voice climbed to that shrill, childlike whine she used to get out of trouble when she was 10. "Mom, you're being insane. We're family. You're overreacting." I didn't answer. She banged again. "You can't just erase me. You owe me." Those words. "You owe me." I stood still in the hallway, gripping the edge of the table to keep from laughing. After everything I'd given, my money, my body, my youth, I owed her. Eventually, they stopped knocking. But the silence was worse. I watched through the curtains as they stood on the porch, arguing. Olivia paced like a caged animal. Brian rubbed his temples. After a few minutes, they both sat on the front steps like sulking teenagers. I made tea. I waited. They finally left after sunset. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked the house, barefoot, room by room. I touched the door frames. Ran my fingers across the kitchen counter. Sat in the living room and just breathed. The house felt lighter. Not quieter. Lighter. No lies. No poison. No weight of pretending. Just me. The next morning, I took a cab downtown and walked into the DNA testing center I'd been avoiding for years. It wasn't that I suspected Olivia wasn't mine. It's that deep down, a part of me already knew. I'd found the old file a month ago during a cleaning spree. A sealed envelope from my divorce attorney, never opened. Inside, a test recommendation. Dated just 6 months after Olivia was born. A test I never followed through on. I always believed love was stronger than blood. That if I raised her, fed her, held her through every scraped knee and broken heart, she was mine. But now, I needed truth. A week later, I returned for the results. I sat in the waiting room like a statue, palms cold. The receptionist handed me the envelope. "Take your time," she said. I didn't need time. I opened it right there. Probability of maternity, 0%. I blinked. Not 50%. Not 99%. 0. I walked home, the wind biting at my face. I didn't cry. I didn't stumble. Because I remembered the day she first called me Mom. She was barely a year old. A baby with another woman's eyes and my last name. She had been left behind after her mother disappeared with my husband, the same man who shattered my marriage, drained my bank account, and then vanished. I never found the woman. But I found the child. She was starving. Screaming. Covered in bruises. And I took her in. Not because I had to. But because I thought, if I saved her, maybe I'd save myself too. Back then, I thought raising someone else's child made me a saint. Now I realize it just made me a target. The next day, Olivia showed up again. Alone this time. I let her speak through the screen door. "You really locked me out of my life," she said, trembling. "This was never your life," I replied. "You lied to me. I thought I was your daughter." "You lied first." "I just wanted to feel secure," she snapped. "You gave me everything, then expected me to grovel for it." "No," I said calmly. "I expected you not to kill me." She went quiet. Her lip quivered. Then she whispered, "Am I adopted?" I didn't answer. I just held up the test results. She stepped back like I'd slapped her. "I raised you," I said. "But I'm not your mother." "Not anymore." Tears welled up in her eyes. "So you're just throwing me away." I shut the door. This time, I didn't even lock it. There was no need. She wouldn't be back. After Olivia left for the last time, I sat at the dining table and stared at the empty chairs across from me. I could still see her and Brian sitting there laughing, chewing with their mouths open, demanding, pretending. I remembered the meals I made for them. Not just recently, but over the years. I fed them when I couldn't feed myself. Scraped money together for groceries while Brian burned through Olivia's bank account and mine. But in those final weeks before the hike, my cooking changed. I knew exactly what I was doing. Rich mashed potatoes. Salty stews. Fried food. Extra sugar in the sauces. Comfort food, yes, but with consequences. Brian gained 10 pounds in 2 weeks. Olivia started complaining about feeling sluggish, dizzy, bloated. I smiled and nodded and made her more pumpkin soup. Back then, I didn't know how far they were willing to go. But I suspected. And I prepared accordingly. I kept my meals light, monitored my own blood pressure, pretended to nap after dinner just to avoid their eyes. Every bite I served them became a step in my plan. Not poison. No. That would have made me like them. Just long-term sabotage. Salt to raise their blood pressure. Butter to slow their reflexes. Sugar to cloud their thoughts. They didn't notice. They were too busy rehearsing their next lie. After I changed the locks and deleted their numbers, I gave myself one final indulgence, revenge wrapped in silk. I booked them a luxury trip 7 days in Phuket. I paid for the resort, the meals, the spa. All under Brian's name. All charged to the same credit card they used to buy my retirement hiking boots. They thought I was extending an olive branch. "Let us make it up to you," Olivia had said in a voicemail. "Let us spend some time with you. We were just stressed. We made mistakes." Mistakes. That word works for forgetting a birthday. Not planning your mother's death. They left 3 days later, beaming like nothing had happened. Olivia messaged me from the airport. "Flight's boarding. Thanks again, Mom. You won't regret this." I didn't reply. Instead, I waited 48 hours, then packed up the last remnants of their life in my house. Clothes. Shoes. Books. Wedding photos. Everything went to donation bins. I even left a little note in one of the boxes. Just 2 words, "Not coming back." When they returned, the locks didn't work. Neither did their keys. The doorbell camera caught them trying to pry open the garage. Olivia screamed my name. Brian kicked the porch rail. I watched the footage while sipping tea. Then, I sent them the final blow. A file with every charge from their vacation. Room service, spa bills, wine, massages. All totaling over $12,000 on Brian's line of credit. I added a message. "You wanted a break. Consider it paid in full." The call came 5 minutes later. "What is this?" Brian roared. "You signed off on these charges." "No," I said calmly. "You did. You booked the flight. You signed the check-in forms. You enjoyed the champagne. You tricked us." Olivia screeched. "And you tried to bury me in a forest." Silence. "You can't cut us off," she hissed. "We're your family." I paused. "You keep using that word," I said. "But I don't think it means what you think it means." Then I hung up. Later that week, I received a call from their landlord. "Ms. Waters, I hate to bother you, but your daughter listed you as a guarantor on her lease." Of course she had. "I'm not responsible for them," I said. "Not anymore." That night, I made a quiet dinner for myself. Rosemary chicken. Roasted squash. A small glass of wine. I set only 1 plate. It felt perfect. It started with a phone call. I was pruning the little herb garden in my backyard, basil, thyme, mint, when the screen door creaked and the phone rang in that slow, lazy rhythm that used to make my heart leap. I didn't rush to answer. I let it ring twice before picking up. Hello. Helen. The voice was warm. Familiar. Leonard. It's been a while, he said. I've been meaning to call. I heard what happened, indirectly. You okay? Leonard Graham. The man I helped in the woods that day. The man who'd fallen off a hidden ledge while I was on my way down the trail, bruised, bleeding, and alone. He was the one I called an ambulance for before leaving the mountain. Turns out he wasn't just some hiker. He was the executive director of Graham Group, the very firm Brian had been chasing for months, hoping to land a partnership deal. Fate doesn't always arrive in thunderclaps. Sometimes, it comes limping out of the forest, asking for help. Would you let me take you to dinner? Leonard asked gently. I hesitated. Not out of fear, but because the idea of being seen, really seen, still felt foreign. Then I heard my own voice say, yes. I'd like that. Dinner turned into walks. Walks into visits. Visits into mornings that started with fresh coffee and 2 mugs instead of 1. Leonard didn't try to fix me. He didn't ask for my story. He simply made space for it. He'd bring books he thought I'd like. He convinced me to join a local pottery class. He said my hands looked like they had something to say. I laughed the first time I touched clay. It had been years since I laughed without weighing the consequences. One afternoon, a padded envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside were internal company memos. Personnel restructuring. Executive changes. Brian's name was gone from every document. No role. No access. No future with the Graham Group. I didn't ask how Leonard managed it. I didn't need to. He never mentioned it. But the next time he came over, he brought my favorite cookies and a bottle of wine. I just smiled and said, thank you. He just smiled back. Weeks passed. The sun began rising earlier, warmer. I redecorated the house. Removed every photo of Olivia. Replaced them with art, colors, shapes. I painted one room soft yellow. It used to be hers. Now it held books, candles, silence. The dog bed Brian always tripped over. Gone. The rug Olivia hated. Still there. I was rebuilding, not for anyone else. Just for me. One morning, I received another call. A familiar number. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Mom. Olivia's voice cracked. I didn't respond. I'm sorry, she whispered. We lost everything. Brian left. I'm sick. I don't know what to do. Her voice was hoarse, like she hadn't slept in days. I never wanted to hurt you, she added. I just thought, maybe if I had more, I'd finally feel safe. I stayed quiet. I still love you, she said. That made me laugh, quiet and bitter. Love doesn't look like life insurance and sedatives, I said calmly. Please, help me. I paused. You made your choices, I replied. And I made mine. Then I hung up. That night, I sat on the porch with Leonard. He took my hand gently, no pressure, just warmth. Do you think, he asked softly, you could ever fall in love again? I watched the moon rise slowly above the trees. Then I turned to him and smiled. Maybe I already have. Thanks for sticking with me to the end of this story. Watch out for more stories by subscribing to Stories After 65.